So if you got the 3-bottle course, we are definitely at the pinnacle of your tasting. This is the last of the wines, the Tempranillo from Spain. This is a Rioja. This is a small region in northern Spain that produces exceptional Tempranillo-based wines. So let's do it, guys. Let's get ready to taste and have some fun. Open your booklet to the color page and let's take a look at this wine. So hold that glass over the booklet and take a look at the color. What do you see here? Well, for me, this wine is definitely in that ruby color realm, and it is pretty opaque. I would say deep ruby for me, for sure. So there we go, color's done. Now let's do something fun here. Let's compare these wines with one another. You can see the Sangiovese is a lot more garnet than this Tempranillo. But then when I go all the way back to the GSM blend looks purple in color compared to the Tempranillo. Pretty interesting, right? So we can take an assessment of the pH level and maybe think, hey, Tempranillo, whereas this one was maybe a little bit lower in acidity and this one was definitely high, maybe this one is somewhere in the middle. Okay, let's give it a swirl and take a look at those legs. And nothing too notable here. They should look almost exactly like the other wines because the alcohol level is the same. Look done. Let's move on to smell. Now, if you need some extra help, I highly recommend you turn to the Tempranillo page because these flavors line up so incredibly well with this particular bottle of wine. You're going to be blown away. Close those eyes and take a quick whiff. We are checking intensity level. How intense was that wine? I barely smelled it. I mean, it's definitely in there. I definitely get some aromas, but it's not huge. Next set of smells. We're going to be identifying flavors. You are absolutely welcome to pause me and take your own notes before you start getting influenced by mine. On the nose, I'm talking fruit here. There's definitely a ripe berry flavor. I'm thinking red berries, and I'm definitely picking cherry, ripe black cherry, as my primary fruit note. Then when I get into the glass and I think about it more, I get this funny dried fruit flavor, almost like dried blackberries that comes through. So red fruits and black fruits in this wine, which I think is really interesting. In fact, depending on where Tempranillo grows, it can produce either red fruit flavored wines or black fruit flavored wines. Fun fact for you there. Let's keep talking about fruit. You could maybe call out black raisins. All right, moving along. We got a lot of fruits right there. Let's get those other notes out of the way. I don't get a lot of floral notes, but I get almost like floral herbal notes. So bay leaf was one that I called out that I felt very strong about, and dill. Beyond that, get with me here on the oak flavors. Do you smell molasses? You know when you wood burn something? It has this sort of wood burn, wood smoke character. And then let's talk about those earth notes. There's definitely some earth notes in here. Smell the Sangiovese. Now smell the Tempranillo. What the heck happened to that wine? It changed, didn't it? Okay, so now we smell this. We're talking wet gravel, volcanic rocks, like maybe even some wet clay. It's very earthy smelling now that I've smelled it against the Sangiovese. So we've done smell. We've called out a ton of flavors. This wine is indeed complex because I can name way more than just 3 of each, fruit and other. So let's now give it a taste. I'm still tasting tannin. I don't know about you guys, but I still feel that tannin. In fact, I feel that tannin like on the front of my teeth, and it's hitting my gums inside of my mouth. So, do you think it's high tannin? Yes, high tannin. Tempranillo can pack a punch. All right, let's talk about acidity level. What do you think as acid-wise compared to the Sangiovese? It's a lot less, isn't it? Like it has an initial pop, but the tannin to me is a lot more stronger and bullish in this wine than acidity. Now we're getting down to the end, that balance from start to finish on the flavor and how it evolves on your palate. It starts juicy fruit right here, goes immediately into this big structured tannin section that's like, and we've got a lot of minerality there as well, but then it finishes. How does it finish? Let's take another sip and reflect on this wine and see how it changed on the second time we tasted it. That ending is pretty interesting, huh? There's this molasses note, almost like a sun-dried tomato flavor on the finish. So savory, but dried fruit notes on the finish for sure. So there we go. That's the Tempranillo, and how that evolves on your palate is very interesting to me. This wine is a Reserva level. In Rioja, they actually have a classification model where they'll label their wines based on aging. So if you get a Reserva Rioja, it's going to have a lot more time in bottle and in barrel than if you just get a basic Rioja wine. So that's an interesting thing to pay attention to when you're looking at the labeling of wines. That's also true of this Chianti Classico right here. The Reserva level is going to be a longer time in barrel and in bottle before it goes to release. That's going to give us these flavors, these molasses-like notes we're getting in this wine. The more dried figgy notes that we're getting in the Sangiovese comes from time in the barrel and time in the bottle. And in Rioja, they use American oak. Some producers use American oak to make their wines. And that's where I'm getting that funny note of dill. So I called out this I get the bay leaf, but I also get some notes of dill. Different places that grow oak trees make the different oak flavors. American oak tends to have dill or coconut type flavors to it, whereas French oak tends to have more vanilla, baking spice, allspice notes to it. So this is something you'll learn to pay attention to. That's Tempranillo. That's super exciting. Let's talk a little bit more about Spanish wines. Tempranillo by far is the most important wine in Spain, but there's some other really fascinating grapes you can explore from Spain that are super delicious and worth checking out. For example, Garnacha, aka Grenache, is another one to seek out. Produces that super fruity style of wine. Monastrell, aka Mourvedre, same grape, produces a richer, saucier, tar-like wine, and you can find some amazing examples from the Valencia or Murcia regions of Spain, and they're absolutely awesome. I also would have to mention Mencia. It's an up-and-coming grape, well worth checking out. You might be noticing how come I haven't heard of any of these grape varieties from Spain? They're just not as common as things like Pinot Noir and Merlot. Well, the interesting thing is, and the thing that I've spent a lot of time thinking about, is how our palates evolved for wine was started with, not with Spain and not with Italy, it actually started with France. In a sense, France won the cultural victory when it came to wine choice and taste in wine. So around the world, you'll see regions are planted with French grapes. And this is not the case with so many of these Spanish grapes and so many of these other Italian grapes that are very delicious and awesome. But for whatever reason, we've chosen France to be our model, our benchmark of what wine is. And it's why Chardonnay, Merlot, Cabernet Sauvignon, and Pinot Noir are so prevalent in the world, and why they're so planted in the United States of America, in Chile, and Australia, and in these other New World wine regions. But I would encourage you to open your mind up to these other grape varieties you're tasting here. They're different. They're savory. They're fascinating. Some of them are super fruity, a la Grenache, Garnacha. So explore, expand that palate, and look for grape varieties you've never heard of. You might like what you find. So for those of you who have taken the 3-bottle course, thank you so much for joining us. I hope this expanded your palate wildly and that you are looking forward to maybe tasting some new wines. And for those hanging on for the last wine, I've got something special in store for you.